Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 12:30 p.m. on the 19th of July 2025. The 19th of July also happens to be my grandmother, who I never met because she was the violent femme suicide she suicided on the 8th of March 1949, a long time before I was even a twinkle in my father's eye. But honour thy ancestors. Today is her birthday, and she suffered immensely through World War II, and with her own issues, no doubt. They got bombed out 3 times and lost everything, and the suicide was precipitated by the fact that my mother was about to get married, and my newly widowed grandmother, well, her husband had died on my birth date, the 12th of April in 1945. So she feared not being able to manage and survive financially alone. So she stuck her head in the gas oven and put an end to all of that. Suicide isn't always painful, people of Earth, but it's fucking permanent, so not pleasant. But she was, as I said, a very, very violent woman to my mother, raising her, growing her up in the midst of war, and there sat the train wreck of cumulative trauma that carried on intergenerationally through the DNA, no doubt. So we try not to think about that. It's a beautiful day here in Brisbane, Australia. I'm out with my boys, my birdie boys, who are very happy to be out in the sunshine too. Bo's pecking at some coconut fibre I gave him to use for foraging for their natural instincts, and he's a happy little lad. Happy little lad. Mama T's a happy little Mama T. I went dancing last night at my favourite club, the Brooklyn Standard, and I had a wonderful time, and I wrote about it on Facebook. Oh, the men were all so sweet and lovely to me last night, and courtly, and very, very kind and attentive and joyous, and even a little tiny bit flirtatious, but not in a horrible, peel your skin off and walk away kind of way. Just sweetness and bit of mischief and heartfelt, and just lovely, really lovely. I really enjoyed last night. And Ramjet played the second last song. They played my favourite song, one of my favourites. I've got many songs that are favourite songs, but they played my signature song that someone can play at my funeral when I die eventually. Finally get to die. You have to laugh. 16 near deaths is a lot, people of Earth. But anyway, they played Zombie, and I went to my signature berserker dance and reached catharsis, and it was just lovely. And the lovely Glassy that works, he's fairly new there, he's a lovely young man. Oh, he's just so sweet. He's got a certain something, that young man. He's going to grow up to be a very fine man. I mean, he's already a grown man, don't get me wrong, but he's still young and fresh. Give him another 10, 20 years to reach full maturity. I do believe he'll be dangerous, darlings. But to you, my darling, he came up to collect the glasses just after Zombie finished, and I was sitting down catching my breath, and just gave me a lovely nod and a smile and acknowledgement. Oh, he's a lovely young fellow. And oh yes, I met some men in a band that have a band. They live down in Albury, Wodonga, and they asked me if I can sing because they're looking for a singer. I said, alas, no. I said I can only barely hold a tune, sometimes hold a tune. And they were most disappointed. And then I said, well, my daughter's a wonderful singer and an actor, and even better, she's 20 and a half years younger than me and looks just like me. And then they looked at me. It was so funny how I came out with that. And then I said, oh, look, here I go again. Once a show business mother, always a show business mother. Here I am selling out my daughter to a band. She'd be horrified if she knew. She'd be like, Mom! But it's okay because we don't speak anymore, probably because I'm a show business mama. Or maybe I didn't show biz enough, and I don't know what it is completely that I did wrong. But anyway, I have a few ideas, but anyway, it was just kind of amusing and sweet. They were nice men, those two men, very nice. And they showed me a video of them performing in their band. And I was trying to listen to it, which was a bit hard because, you know, we had their own music going on from Ramjet. And then I said to them, I said, oh, that was a successful turnout. You had a lot of people at your gig. That was a good turnout. And then the bass guitarist, Glenn, looked at me. He was closer to my vintage and age. He said to me, no, it wasn't, he said. I said, whatever do you mean? I said, I can see all the people there. There's lots of people. He said, they were all my workmates. Aussie larrikin humour. It's so self-deprecating and kind of a bit incisive and a bit cruel. Anyway, I'm just looking at him and I went, well, it looks like you had a fabulous time. And then Ben, who was 49, he informed me, he said, it's my band, I'm the leader of the band. Of course it was successful. I said, of course it's successful. That's exactly what I was saying before you did the whole Aussie self-deprecation thing. Anyway, they were lovely, the two of them. I really liked them. I really liked Ben. He was intelligent and witty and also had a certain je ne sais quoi. But they'd befriended a lady and they were both competing for her, they said. And I just nodded and laughed because Mama T competes for no man. It's beneath my dignity. But anyway, they were laughing about that too. Anyway, they were nice fellows. And then my friend Hayley turned up, and I squealed with such joy that the younger Brazilian man that befriended me got jealous and told us to get a room. I was a bit offended by that, quite frankly. Men jealous of women's joy and delight and seeing each other after it's been quite some time since I last saw her. Anyway, she and I swapped numbers so we can keep in contact and, go out together. So that'll be lovely. I'll look forward to that, actually. She's a lovely woman. And, oh yes, the other strange thing that happened last night was I was sitting on my couch, all made up, ready to go, just biding a bit of time because I don't like to get there too early. And I'd prepaid my parking, so my parking was all sorted. I was just sitting there feeling, because unbeknownst to most people, because of my severe anxiety and trauma issues, I have terrible anxiety before I go dancing, before I go out in the world. There's always that fear of threat and things going wrong, other people's unpleasantness. It's a real barrier that I have to push through and push past and climb over. And it takes a lot of fortitude to actually take myself out alone, as I have done, for 15 years now. Longer than that, but 14 years in the Brisbane music scene. And so anyway, people don't realise that the cost to me is not just paying for parking and, you know, putting on makeup and putting on nice glad rags. It's an emotional, mental galvanisation. Galvanisation that takes place, and putting myself in the mindset of, well, I'm going out to have a lovely time, and whatever happens, happens, and I'll make the best of the situation, as I try to do. And if things go horribly awry, which has been known to happen in the past, so I have to push through the fear barrier. Anyway, I wasn't feeling particularly fearful or anything, but I was just, you know, a little bit anxious, sitting on my couch, biding time till it was time to get in the car and drive to the club. And I heard in Spanish, which makes me sit up and take notice. My spirit people often will speak to me in foreign languages if they want me to take particular notice, because otherwise I just think, oh, it's my own thoughts or just random things, you know, when it's in English. But quite clearly and loudly in my head, I heard, "Aliente, por favor." Aliente, I thought? That sounds Spanish. Por favor, of course, means please in Spanish. So I knew it was Spanish, but I didn't know what aliente meant. So I Googled it, and it meant extra strength, encouragement, cheering on. And so that was rather the theme of my evening going out. Before I even got there, I was instructed to just, you know, intrepidly give myself extra strength and courage. And as the night unfolded magnificently, I was there to give extra strength and courage to one of the regular women that I saw was a little bit emotional, which happens sometimes. Someone must have said something awful to her because she looked quite distressed, you know. So I went up and gave her a hug and a kiss and told her that I loved her because she's a nice woman. Oh, it's hard sometimes. Things that can just tip us over the edge, you know, some unkind remark, or I don't know what upset her, but anyway, in that moment I gave her extra strength and encouragement. And you know, I was very encouraging of the two men in the band and admiring their gig that they showed me, and I was very encouraging of the younger Brazilian man, who was very attentive. He hung around me most of the evening, but there was another woman competing for him, and I just laughed. You just have to laugh. And you know, as an older woman who's been on my own for 30 years, it doesn't bother me if I'm not chosen. I've been off the sexual gambit now for 10 years, so it really doesn't worry me in the slightest. I'm just out to dance and live my best life and enjoy sometimes spiritual unfoldments that occur while I'm out, sometimes to catalyse them myself, not always consciously, but anyway, it was quite wonderful. I had quite a wonderful evening. Quite wonderful, and I'm very, very contented. I'm very tired, but I'm very contented. So I thought, while I'm here, I'll continue on with chapter 2 of part 2, which was part 2 is, what was the theme? I can't remember. Becoming an individual. So chapter 2 is titled Fighting for Autonomy. It's a long time struggle in my case, by the gods. The emergence of individuality involves not only leaving childhood behind, but also facing and battling with those forces in the world and within ourselves that are regressive, destructive, stagnant, and unwilling to cope with the limits of earthly life. This battle for autonomy is a rite of passage which every young person faces, and it may have to be fought many times on many different levels, from the teens through to the 30s. Imagine being 60 and still fighting for your autonomy. It grinds one's gears. It really does. Before we feel confident, real, and worthwhile enough to express who we are in the most positive, creative way. There is no cheating with this rite of passage. It may be subtle, taking forms which are not immediately recognised as a battleground. But if we try to avoid the challenge of autonomy, we remain forever fragile, immature, and vulnerable to having our brittle defences shattered by the slightest of life's disappointments. It's true, people of Earth. It's very, very true. Siegfried, battling with inertia. The great figure of Siegfried is known in myth from Germany to Iceland, and he is the quintessential Northern European hero called Sigurd in Scandinavian stories. His exploits are the subject of some of the finest epic poetry in the world. The part of the tale that is relevant here is the battle between the young Siegfried and the dragon Fafnir, guardian of the Nibelung's gold. Mama T's very partial to gold when she can afford it. I've decided when I can afford it, I'm going to go around like cash converters or antique shops and, just buy, perhaps when they have sales, old gold and cast rings in gold. I've decided to upgrade from sterling silver, but of course gold being a lot more expensive, it'll take me time to accrue enough gold to make a nice ring for myself or as a gift for someone else ultimately. But yes, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I have the skills to melt the gold and practice making maybe wax rings for models, so it's going to be my next adventure as finances allow, people of Earth. Siegfried was the child of a forbidden union between Sigmund and his sister Sieglinde. Although both brother and sister met a tragic end, Sigmund left a great and beautiful sword to the son he would never meet. The sword was broken, yet if mended, it could never be defeated in battle. The orphaned child Siegfried was raised by the Nibelung dwarf Mime, who grudgingly looked after him in the hope that one day the powerful, courageous youth would find the strength to kill the dragon Fafnir and capture the great hoard of gold which had, long before, been stolen from the Nibelungs by the god Wotan, which is the Anglo-Saxon name of Odin. It's funny, you know, because I'm I am technically a hobbit. I'm short with big feet, and a hobbit is sort of a cousin to dwarfs. And here I am craving gold. What does gold really represent, people of Earth? Masculine energy, the sun. Oh, it can be feminine too, I guess. But silver's more identified with the moon and feminine energy. So I'm craving gold. And it's like, you know, if you sell jewellery second hand, you don't get very much for second hand gold. So, and you can't really eat it. So I'm not sure what that's about. Probably wanting to afford myself some kind of financial stability. But you'd need a shit ton of gold for that, people of Earth. So anyway, I'm just musing. I'm just bemused and musing about my sudden penchant for gold. Then Mime planned to kill Siegfried and keep the gold for himself. That's not very nice, is it? Use someone to steal back your gold and then kill them. It's a mean little dwarf. Nibelung. But the gods favoured Siegfried. For one day when the youth was walking through the forest, he heard a bird singing and found that he could understand its song. How's that for synchronicity, people of Earth? It's lovely out in the garden, isn't it? The bird warned him not only that Mime intended to kill him, but also why. When Siegfried returned to Mime's forge, he said nothing of this newfound knowledge, but he bided his time, waited, and watched. Soon Mime asked him to forge his father's sword anew, and Siegfried did as he was bid, turning his strength and endurance to the task. Mime told him of the hoard of gold hidden deep in a cave and guarded by the sleeping dragon Fafnir. Amidst this gold was the ring of Nibelungs, which had many powers, and which Mime coveted above all else. The dwarf then instructed Siegfried to return to him with the gold. But Siegfried had heard enough of the dwarf's treachery, and he killed him with the sword. The young hero now set off in search of the dragon Fafnir. This dragon had once been a giant, not very intelligent, but extremely large and threatening. Through the power of the ring, Fafnir had turned himself into a huge, loathsome, scaled creature. This dragon slept all the time, perpetually enchanted by dreams of the gold buried beneath its serpent-like coils. The bird which had first told Siegfried of Mime's treachery now led the young man to the cave. And Siegfried, brandishing his sword, killed the dragon and found the golden hoard. But so unaffected was Siegfried by the temptations of wealth that she chose only 2 things to take with him from the hoard: a helmet that could make him invisible, and the ring of the Nibelungs, whose powers he did not yet understand. And thus he set out on further adventures. Before we continue with the commentary, I'll just show you the detail. In the forest of Fontainebleau, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, 1841 to 1919. Siegfried wandered far into the heart of the forest, where a bird, hidden among the boughs, warned him of that the dwarf Mime was plotting his death. You should always listen to the birdies, shouldn't you, Kermie? The birdies are sometimes messengers of the gods, just like angels are messengers of God. They come in all shapes and sizes and can take you by surprise. I wonder who that spirit was last night that spoke to me in Spanish. Aliente, por favor. That shall stay with me all week. That kind of almost made me fall off the couch in surprise. But you see, it's how I know that I'm heavily protected and very much loved, even if it's only by the gods and the ancestors that love me, and the good folk and the birdies, and sometimes other human mortals too. But shh, let us not get too ahead of ourselves. I can hear them all responding in the distance. It's actually beautiful. You should see little Bo's face. He's like, and Kermie's listening too. Can you hear them all singing to you, boys? Yes? They're sending us messengers. If only Mama understood them, we would be wise beyond all the worlds. Dr. Dolittle comes to mind. I'll tell you what he's saying, boys. He's saying, no matter what, no matter who, never cede, never quit, never yield, and happiness, my beautiful beloved people of earth, is always and forever a choice. So choose joy. Manifest it where you can, with harm to none and competition with none. Happiness is hard won sometimes, especially when you come from my background of abject fucking horror. But the older I get, the happier I get, and I'm grateful to the gods for blessing me with this gorgeous night last night and this bright blue blessed day. Gratitude and attitude is everything, people of earth. Right, the commentary is, like so many heroes of myth, Siegfried does not know his parents nor his true potential. All he has is a broken sword inherited from a father who died before he was born. Yet this sword, although it must be forged anew, is a legacy of strength and courage which has passed down through the generations. So too do we inherit gifts from our parents and grandparents. My gift from my grandmother, the violent femme suicide, is courage. Ironic, isn't it? Since she died in such a awful, cowardly way. But it was also an act of defiance and courage, not knowing how she was going to live on into the future that was bleak, impoverished, brutalised and isolated people of Earth. It was her last scream out into the void. And I've learnt to forgive her that choice. But she was indeed very courageous during World War II. She threw Wurst, which is like salami sausage, rolls of sausage like salami, and bread to a holding camp in Hamburg, like prisoners of war or other people put into concentration camps would sometimes be put in this, I don't know what you call it, like a preliminary camp before they were shipped out to other areas. And she would throw the bread and the Wurst over the barbed wire and then run like hell screaming down with Hitler. My mother told me that, and it was a very, very fucking crazy and dangerous thing to do, because in Nazi Germany, if you said down with Hitler, you got shot almost immediately, right between the eyeballs, people of Earth. So the other thing she did that was extremely dangerous was she kept a wireless radio tuned to the BBC in their apartment, and if they'd been caught with that, instant shooting as well. So my grandmother was in many ways quite eccentric, quite mad, violent to my mother, and had erratic mood swings that I don't know what she suffered from, what her diagnosis would have been in modern times, but I think it also related to some kind of complex trauma, perhaps from her own childhood. Her mother was Polish. My grandmother was born in Charlottenburg in Berlin in Germany, but she always identified as Polish because her mother came from Poznan or Posen. So it's partly why she hated the Nazis so much for invading Poland. And when my mother was signed up to join the Mädchen, which is the female arm of the Hitler Youth, which by the way was not exactly a choice in Nazi Germany. If you didn't join the Hitler Youth, you were either considered a Jew or a dissenter, put you in imminent danger of your life. No was not an answer that was tolerated in Nazi Germany. So when my mother joined that female arm, the Mädchen, my grandmother Eva threw a glass at her and slashed her hand wide open. My mother still bore the scar and showed me the scar. That was just one act of violence against my mother that she committed since very early childhood. Things like running over her back, literally raking her back with stiletto steel-capped shoes, high-heeled shoes, whipping her with a cast iron belt buckle. Or she was vicious, my grandmother. a vicious woman to her own blood, and yet street angel home devil was actively opposing the Nazis and fighting against the Nazi regime in her own small way. It's odd, isn't it? It's very odd. My mother went to school so brutally beaten and bruised all over that the teacher actually, and this was rare in Nazi Germany, by the way, because the culture of that time with parenting was violent. It was normal to beat your kids. Everyone did it. But she was so badly bruised that she couldn't turn up for swimming lessons, which ironically Hitler demanded she teach the orphans she was billeted to look after in the south of Germany how to swim. All she learnt how to do was dog paddle in those swimming lessons, because she was often too brutally bruised to present in her little swimsuit. So the teacher complained to my grandmother about the bruising. That's how severe it was. My mother said she would walk home from school along the length of a canal and worry about what mood her mother would be in when she got home, whether she would be beaten or whether everything would be calm, which was a rarity. And she would consider throwing herself in the canal and drowning, which she never did. But all comprehensible, the level of trauma and the desire to escape permanently, people of Earth. So, yes. But my gift from Eva Augusta Meyer, was courage and fearlessness and anarchy against regimes that try to deprive us of our body autonomy in the form of the COVID epoch, the transmogrification of our blood. And prior to that, I fought long and hard against child sexual abuse, which is a fight I'll probably be fighting till the day I die, people of Earth. Because that is an evil that will never go away and will perpetually need to vigilantly defend against. The recent case of a paedophile in childcare centres caught with hundreds of children affected here in Australia is abhorrent beyond belief. That was allowed to continue and go on for so long. It's a seeping, ugly, putrescent wound, and indeed a gift that keeps giving with cumulative trauma throughout those little children's lives. So my heartfelt prayers go out to all those children affected. Amen. V'salah. Right, where were we? So too do we inherit gifts from our parents and grandparents, which we must shape according to our own values and abilities in order to use them in our own way and in pursuit of our own individual destiny. Also, like many heroes of myth, Siegfried is in danger from a treacherous creature who wishes to use the youth's strength for his own purposes. This first conflict with the foe reflects the early realization that not all the world is on our side, and that we must be conscious of the reality of envy, meanness, and destructiveness, whether in our families, our school environment, our place of work, or within ourselves, if we are to make our way in life. What you doing, little boy? Are you making your little feathery way in life? You are, aren't you? You're a beautiful boy. You're a very beautiful, brave boy. Yes. Siegfried becomes aware of this need for self-protection by listening to a bird's song. What might this strange image mean to us? The bird is the voice of nature and the instincts warning us that we are in danger and showing us the right path when the time comes to pursue our quest. Staying true to your humanness and your nature and your role within the greater scope of all nature that surrounds us, remembering that we too are animals, although sentient and high functioning and intelligent and creative and capable of great things. At our core, we are still very much animals and very much part of nature. The bird is we read that, sorry. Perhaps all of us possess this ability to understand the voice of the instincts, if we would only take the time to listen, because Siegfried stops and listens, and opens himself to the wisdom of the bird. He learns not only where the gold is hidden, but also whom he must fight in order to survive. Knowing who your enemy is and how to fight them and confront them openly is the key to survival, people of Earth. And also battling against the enemy from within that would have you self-immolate from time to time, because as my grandmother found, it seems easier than dealing with an unknown future, unknown quantities, unknown qualities. Why are you bathing in your bowl of water when I gave you a big bowl of water to bath in? Funny boy. No, this one here. This one. Down here, look. You're so cute. Do you know how unbelievably cute you are? Yes. He's a cutie. Here comes the kookaburra. They're scared of the kookaburra. Down here, boy. Have a bath. Down here. Look. It's the first time I've seen him even attempt to have a bath. And I've had them for 2 months. They've been rather dirty birds. You have to laugh. I'll just repeat that sentence because I got distracted by the Kermie having a bath. Perhaps all of us possess this ability to understand the voice of instincts if we would only take the time to listen, because Siegfried stops and listens and opens himself to the wisdom of the bird. He learns not only where the gold is hidden, but also whom he must fight in order to survive. In killing Mime, he acts in self-defense, for otherwise the dwarf would kill him. We do not usually have to kill anyone in order to achieve autonomy. Thank the gods for that. But the killing of Mime suggests, on the symbolic level, that we must be willing to be ruthless in removing ourselves from those people who wish us ill. This is a hard lesson for any young person to learn, for unless we have grown up embittered by life, we have ideals which make us believe that all doors will open for us at our command, and assume that all people will be kind and love us. This is both the gift and the shortcoming of youth. Sadly, like Siegfried, we may have to learn early rather than late that the world is peopled with both love and hatred, and that while some people may be loving, some may not. I'm just astonished. I've given him a big bowl of water to bathe in below, and he's choosing to bath in his drinking bowl, which is tiny in comparison. Oh, you're a funny boy. You really are a gorgeous but funny boy. Right. The dragon Fafnir is a curious creature, part giant and part dragon. I'm going to move. I don't like being in the shade. I'm going to move a little bit. Just bear with me. Ow, that was my joints aching, clicking on. Right, there we go, my darlings. Just take you with us. Here we go. That's better, isn't it? A little bit. Somewhat better. I'll just repeat that sentence. The dragon Fafnir is a curious creature, part giant and part dragon. This figure is an image of human greed and inertia. Content with simply possessing the gold, Fafnir has no intention of using it for good or ill. He just wishes to keep it in his grasp. Unlike many dragons that are altogether more rampant and dangerous, Fafnir is an image of waste, of unused power and potentials. Gold represents value and energy, and thus the dragon, a symbol of all that is lazy, slothful, greedy, and stagnant in human nature, is content to sleep on these precious, unused resources, doing nothing, going nowhere, and keeping the forces of life in stasis. You know, I lived like that for 30 years. I slept through my life. 30 fucking years. 15 of them on very, very hefty psych meds. Shuffling and drooling and even my arm would spasm involuntarily, and then my then former psychiatrist put me on Cogentin to stop the Parkinsonian spasming, and I went blind for 4 days and needed glasses after that. Cheers, thanks a lot, Big Pharma, for almost poisoning me to obliteration. But I weaned off all those psych meds in early June 2016, just 4 years prior, the COVID epoch. I clawed my mind back from the fucking abyss with great courage and determination, and the support of my current wonderful psychiatrist. And I'm alive today to tell you it's wonderful on the other side of madness. Well, it wasn't really madness, it was, complex PTSD and major depression and being knocked off my little white cotton socks, being mollycoddled and protected by Big Pharma. So when the COVID epoch began and unrolling and unravelling, I said, hell no, Mama T simply won't be going along with that. There's been enough poisons inserted into my body since birth. I'm drawing the line in the sand, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that the gods kept me alive for this season of joy and delight with my handsome birdie boys and all the handsome and beautiful men and women that surrounded me with so much love last night. I'm grateful for that too. Goddess bless. Right, where were we? Keeping the forces of life in stasis. Sometimes, if there's no other way out but through, and even through is fighting between the membrane of life and death, sleeping through it is the only way to survive, people of Earth. But it is a suspended animation, and a great soul loss, and opportunities lost, and potentiates lost, and loss of wealth creation, and loss of finding noble and worthy and loving partnerships, because no one wants you when you're a mental patient. Trust me on that one, my darlings. It still remains that way to this day, but I'm okay with that. I fought my way through, mostly alone, and it took great courage and determination and fortitude. In destroying the dragon, Siegfried releases these potentials, allowing them to flow into life once again. But the hero does not want great wealth, nor all the things which the gold could buy him. Because of the trials through which he has already passed, he has learned the wisdom of the instincts, has faced the reality of human malice, and has reclaimed and renewed his inheritance, the sword which gives him the power to conquer. But he has also found something else, which is integrity. Siegfried knows what he values, and that is not the indiscriminate luxury and worldly power which the gold could give him. He chooses only the helmet of invisibility and the ring, He does not know their history. He chooses them because he finds them beautiful, and because his instincts tell him they are of greater value than any coin or golden bauble. Indeed. These objects are profoundly important, for they carry magical powers. The helmet of invisibility is an ancient symbol we find also in Greek myth. There it is portrayed as the property of Hades, and it allows its wearer to move through life concealed. It is an image of worldly wisdom, for with it we know when to be still, so that we can observe and learn from life without imposing our own views, wishes, and opinions on others. It is also an image of the ability to know and keep secrets, without which we remain children who must blurt out everything we feel and think to anyone who will listen. And the ring of the Nibelungs. Entire volumes have been written about its meaning, and the golden ring of power appears not only in Teutonic and Norse myth, but also in J.R.R. Tolkien's classic 20th century tale, The Lord of the Rings. One of my favourite stories of all time. And The Hobbit, of course. You eating apple, my handsome boy? Oh, I love it when you eat apple. He dips it in water. The ring of the Nibelungs comes first from the depths of the waters, an image of the natural magic and power in the depths of the human soul. We all have our own magic and our own power, people of Earth. Try it sometime. It's wonderful. Of course, if you wield it for good and not for evil, then it can be a frightening, chilling, ugly thing. It is stolen first by the dwarf Alberich, who seeks power over the world, and in turn it is stolen by the great god Wotan. This ring holds the power to both create and enslave others. It is wrested from the depths of the unconscious and forged into a tool which can be used for good or evil. For such is the power of human ingenuity and creative inspiration. Alberich wishes to use it for evil. Mime wants to do the same. Wotan wishes no evil, but feeds his vanity and sets evil in motion unwittingly. We've all done that from time to time, people of Earth. Even the Mamati. Not meaning harm or ill will, but just sometimes holding our own has caused great evil in others, feeling envious and vengeful and insecure and weak. instead of aspiring to their own inner magic and power, as every soul already innately has. They try to destroy or steal from others' power, and stolen power is not that fucking worth having, people of Earth. Get your own. Dig deep into your own body, mind and spirit, psyche, and grow your own powers. That is the making of every man and every woman, and indeed child. Yes, children can be born powerful too, and that should actually be fostered and encouraged and directed in right ways. Yet Siegfried wants the ring only because it is beautiful. He does not yet understand what it can do. Eventually it leads him to tragedy, but that is later, and due to his own foolishness. For now, we need to remember that the ring contains all the human potentials for creativity and leadership, which can be discovered by every young person if the dragon of sloth, inertia, and unconsciousness can be conquered. He's watching me, watching him, and smiling. What you doing, beautiful boy? You coming to see the mama tea? I love you both. Both my beautiful birdie boys. They kind of like me, but they're still a bit ambivalent. But, you know, it takes time. It's only been 2 months. They really like being out in the garden, though. I can tell that they're happy. Bo's preening right now, showing me that he's happy. Right. The next story is called The Fair Unknown. Just want to check how many stories are in this chapter because I'm making this video on my iPhone and uploading issues, babies. Oh, not too many left. The Fair Unknown, Finding an Identity. In myth, the hero represents the human impulse to leave the safety of tame and familiar surroundings and move out into unknown, even dangerous territory. Like I did when I invited myself off the street to an outlaw motorcycle clubhouse. That was very, very unusual and audacious. And quite dangerous, to be honest. But I decided that, you know, how old was I when I did that? 2000 late 2011. So 46. I decided that I'd been going to the casino and I hadn't met anyone decent there, and hadn't met anyone decent anywhere actually, and I decided that I'm not mainstream and I need a man who's unusual and quirky and courageous and a bit wild, but also has a code of ethics and knows how to treat a woman, am I right? So I decided, based on observing them singing and dancing out the front of their clubhouse one early Saturday morning as I was returning home from the casino by bus. They look like they're having fun and I might like to join in with them. So very naively and sweetly and innocently, I rocked up a few weeks after that and blew their mind by turning up off the street. Do you know anyone in this clubhouse? They asked me. No, no one. What are you doing here, love? They asked. I said, well, quite frankly, I'm sick to death of pink frilly knickered, buckle riding bully boys dragging me down, referring to my ex-boyfriend who was an associate of a rival clubhouse. I said, I need a real man who knows how to treat a real woman. You point me to the real men, bearing in mind that they're single mind, because I don't want to step on any woman's toes. And, you know, we'll just see how we get along, shall we? Well, they laughed and laughed and laughed, gave me a free drink. You're welcome here, love, they said. And indeed I was made welcome for 8 months. Had a lovely time hanging out with those people. But it was a mission one of my angels sent me on, no doubt. I don't know whether the mission was successful or unsuccessful, or what the point of that was, but I had a lovely time. Non-judgment, basic respect and courtesy and autonomy gets you a long way in life, people. A long way. Sometimes on the road to nowhere, but it's all good. It was part of my healing as well, my shamanic walk. Right, where was I? In Arthurian myths, the knight-errant confronts many dangers, which the two greatest perils he must face are dishonour and death. I think the worst thing than death is dishonour, because we all know we come back from death in another form somewhere, somehow, in another life, but dishonour, that's a stain that sits with you throughout eternity, people. It's a bit fucking hard to clean too. I hate that when people dishonour me, especially when I haven't done anything to deserve it. I will go to war on your head if you ever fucking dishonour me. Certain person knows about that now, doesn't he? Should have thought carefully before he dared treat me like that at that public gig at the Koala Tavern. Especially a woman who loved him deeply. Motherfucker. But that's okay. He continues on with his journey and I continue on with mine, and no hard feelings. Love is the law. Love under will, people of Earth. You find the people that resonate with you like a slapped bass and a broken G-string, but who love you truly and deeply and honouringly until the fucking end of time. I won't settle for anything less than that, people of Earth. Rather stay on my own, quite frankly. than settle for anything and anyone less than that. There's been enough dishonour in my entire life, 60 years of it. So when the limity says no, draws the line in the sand, only the gods can cross that bridge, hale and hearty. But we had a wonderful time last night. We did. Wonderful time. And as I say, I was treated with kindness and indeed honour, how everyone should be treated at all times, morning, noon and night, always. Mama T has spoken. In other words, he risks his life for his ideal of what he should be. In this tale, our hero is Gwynplaine. In the beginning, like Peredur and Siegfried, he does not know his name, nor who his father is. His mother has brought him up alone, and on account of his stunning good looks, calls him fair son. Oh, I had this lovely Brazilian man. It was very sweet, very befriending me last night. He was a very sweet man, very lovely man actually. And my friends Alex and Stacey arrived late in the evening, as they often do. And I didn't actually see Alex more than felt his presence. Actually arrived with a bit of an energy signature. He's a beautiful man, young man, long blonde hair, very Viking. I don't know what background he has, but he's a Viking, that boy, way back in his ancestry. He's a beautiful young man, and his girlfriend or his partner is a beautiful woman too. They're a lovely couple. And I just sensed, I'm washing along to the music with the Brazilian. His name was Rodrigo, dancing beside me joyously. Oh, he was lovely. We had fun together. It was good, clean fun. And then I felt this presence. And I looked over my shoulder and I see Alex. And he's looking at me like this, very sweetly. Oh, he's so sweet. I always joke around that he's the son I never had, because he looks like it could be my son. I never had a son, I only had daughters, which is fine. I love my daughters. Even though they're estranged and they abandoned me, they're still my girls. But anyway, well, they're women now and they're almost 40s, by the gods. Crystal turns 40 in November. Can you imagine that? That's a frightening thought. That ages me, but it's okay. Anyway, so I look at Alex and I see him and I immediately reach over and he leans over and kisses his cheek, Oh, he's a lovely lad. He's so affectionate and sweet with me too. It's like having family, but not really, because they're just people you see out in the music scene regularly over many years, and you don't socialise with them outside of that small container. But anyway, he's always lovely to me. So Brazilian guy notices, that we kissed each other's cheek. And, oh, you know him, he says to me, all jealous. I thought, I'm going to avoid that Brazilian man. I'm not going to get involved with him, I thought, because twice he acted very jealous and possessive, and I've just fucking met him. I don't know him from Adam. All I've done is dance beside him. Like, by the gods, that immediate taking ownership of a woman, it just makes me want to peel my skin off and slough it off and just shuck it all off. It's revolting. And I don't know whether it's a byproduct of the adverse reactions of the mother hydra babies, but I'm seeing a lot of this extreme possessiveness and envy and jealousy happening in recent years, and it's creeping me the fuck out, quite frankly. But anyway, so I wasn't angry with Rodrigo. I'm just observing the jealousy straight away. I mean, dude, I'm not even involved with you and you're acting like you own me. Don't fucking do that. But anyway, I wasn't angry. I'm just noticing. Anyway, Alex is sweet and also a bit protective of me too, because, you know, the mama tea. And so Rodrigo says, oh, do you know him? I said, yes, he's my son. And then Alex and I look at each other and we just smile, because he's not my son at all. He's someone else's son. She's done a very fine job of her young man, though. He's grown up to be a fine young man, a man you should be proud of. Be proud to have a son like that, sweet and affectionate and kind, and you know, quite heartfelt and sincere. I believe, or I choose to believe. And so anyway, so then of course my friend Alex, you know, is looking at me, looking at Rodrigo anyway. And I said, where's Stacey? I always ask where Stacey is. She's always with him, but sometimes she's at the bar. Or she was hiding behind him. I didn't even see him because he's so tall. So then I was satisfied that Stacey was there. I was happy too about that. And we carried on with our wild dancing and moshing side by side, Alex and I, and Rodrigo's taking all this in, you know. He was a funny fellow, actually. He was quite attentive. He'd go away and he'd come back. Can I have your fan? He'd go away and come back. When I gave him my fan, I don't usually let people use my fans because they break it because they're drunk and they're idiotic, you know. That's what people do. They don't have respect for other people's, you know, possessions. So he said, can I borrow your fan? Or can I have your fan? So I handed it to him and I said, yes, Rodrigo, you can have my fan, but you must treat it like the finest, most elegant, most precious woman, with gentleness and sensitivity and respect. What? He said. I said, don't break my fan. Even he had to laugh. He was like, okay. Yeah, it was quite hilarious. Honestly, they don't know what to make of me sometimes, but, you know, it's the mama tea, the Tanya. Don't fuck with the Tanya and what have you, etc., etc., etc. Right, anyway, well, I just wanted to tell you that because it was just interesting observing the jealousy and then he threw a wobbly when my friend Hayley arrived, and she just tapped me on my back to let me know she was there, and I turned around and saw her and I screamed and we hugged, you know. And then he screams out, get a room! And I'm like, how dare you? I don't even know you really. I've just met you tonight. And you're insinuating that now I'm a lesbian. Not that there's anything wrong with being a lesbian. Don't get me wrong, people of Earth. But, you know, just that insinuation and rudeness. I didn't even look at him. I was so disgusted. I just said, she is my friend. How dare you? Anyway, he went away and came back and went away, came back. He was utterly fascinated. It happens. It happens with men sometimes. They're fascinated, but they don't know how to behave around the Tanya. The Tanya's too old to pick them up by their wet behind the ears attitudes and shake them and hang them up on the hill's hoist and spin them around and fling them off back into the void. It's hard work and I really can't be bothered. I'm out to dance and have a lovely time, go home exhausted. It's my only agenda. So anyway, but it was quite delightful. I enjoyed meeting the two musicians too. They were lovely men. So we all had a lovely time in spite of Rodrigo's Brazilian smothering, envy, and already starting with the control dynamics. Anyway, it was hilarious, but an exercise in reminding the Tanya, be careful who you invite into your life, O Mamati. You're still far too indulgent at times. Anyway, where were we? On reaching manhood, Glen left his mother's house and rode off to the court of King Arthur. He boldly entered the great hall and asked the king to grant him whatever he asked. Arthur, amused by the youth's strange mixture of confidence and naivety, agreed. As the young man had no name but a handsome and pleasing countenance, the king called him the fair unknown. Oh, pardon me. Just then, another stranger appeared, a maiden whose name was Healy. She begged Arthur to send a knight to rescue her mistress, blonde Esmeralda, the Queen of Wales. 2 wicked sorcerers had turned Esmeralda into a dragon, and the poor queen could only be released from her bondage by a kiss. Of course, Glen offered his services immediately, and Arthur, bound by his promise to give the youth anything he asked, granted him permission. At first, Healy was irritated by being given an inexperienced young man, lacking even a name, to accomplish such an important task. She rode away in a fury, and Glen had quite a job to catch up with her. However, before long, Healy changed her mind, as the fair unknown proved a courageous and clever companion. He overcame a fierce knight at the perilous ford, saved a girl from 2 giants, and defeated a further 3 knights who attacked him. Healy and the fair unknown arrived at the Golden Island, which could only be reached by a causeway. It was well defended by a formidable knight who wished to marry the lady of the Golden Island, but this lady did not love him and promised that she would only consent to marriage if he managed to hold the causeway for 7 years. The knight had succeeded in this for the first 5 years, and a row of severed heads on tall spikes marked his efficiency in combat. Glen, however, challenged, fought, and killed the knight without further ado. The lady of the island was a breathtakingly lovely fae called the Maiden of the White Hands. She lived in a castle made of crystal, set in a garden filled with spices and flowers which blossomed all the year round. The fae had long loved Glen, although he did not know this. She welcomed him to the island and declared her wish to marry him. Glen felt a strong attraction to her too, but Healy reminded him of the task in hand, and early next morning they crept away. That night they arrived at a castle where the custom was to fight the Castellan for a night's lodging. Glen won the joust easily, and the Castellan gave them a warm welcome. The next day he led them to the waste city of Sinaldon, where Healy's mistress, the blonde Esmeralda, was imprisoned. The Castellan warned Ginglain that he should return. Losing my voice, dear goddess. Well, I did sing loudly to Zombie last night. The Castellan warned Ginglain that he should return any welcome he received in the city with a curse. The city of Sinaldon had once been glorious, but now it lay in ruins. Ginglain rode through a broken gate and past crumbling, deserted towers, and at last he reached a palace. There pale minstrels played in candlelit windows, calling him welcome. But Ginglain obeyed his orders and cursed them. He entered the great hall, where he was attacked by axes, yet the hands which wielded them were invisible. Dear goddess. Then a huge knight appeared on a fire-breathing horse. Ginglain, though powerfully afraid, courageously fought and killed him, and the knight's body miraculously putrefied before his eyes. The minstrels then fled with their candles, and Ginglain was alone in darkness, keeping his spirits up by thinking of the beautiful maiden with the white hands. Then a horrible fire-breathing serpent glided towards him in the darkness and kissed him on the lips. A mysterious voice announced, "Your name is Ginglain, and you are the son of Gawain." His quest finally achieved, Ginglain fell asleep on the spot, exhausted but overjoyed that he now knew who he was. When he awoke, the hall was full of light, and next to him stood a beautiful woman, although not quite as beautiful as the maiden with the white hands. This lady was blonde Esmeralda, returned to her human form. She told Ginglain that the two enchanters, Marbon and Evrain, had bewitched both her and the city in order to make her marry Marbon, and the spell had driven all the inhabitants of the city away. Marbon was the giant knight on the fire-breathing horse, whom Ginglain had killed the night before, and now that she was free from the spell, Esmeralda intended to marry Ginglain. Ginglain at first agreed, but found himself wishing for his beautiful Fae, the maiden with the white hands. He returned once more to the Golden Island, where at last he and the Fae consummated their love. She told him she had watched over him all his life. She had sent Healy to Arthur's court, knowing that Ginglain would volunteer for the adventure, and it was her voice that pronounced his name and revealed his true identity to him at last. However, when news arrived that King Arthur had organised a grand tournament, the Fae knew she could not hold her lover any longer, and having slept in her arms, Ginglain awoke alone in a wood, armour-clad and with a horse at his side. He proved his valour over and over at the tournament, and was reunited with blonde Esmeralda, who had followed him there. Together they travelled to Sinaldon, delighting in the fact that its people had returned. There they were married and crowned king and queen amid great rejoicing. Commentary. The story of the fair unknown describes the search for identity and tells us that only through enduring danger and difficulty can the true self be discovered. At the beginning of the song, Gwynplaine, like most other young people, does not know who he is. In order to discover himself, he must face many perils. In everyday life, every individual must leave the safety of home to strike out alone. In many myths, a dragon fight is a requirement in order to conquer evil. Dragons are often symbols of human greed, chaos, and destructiveness. They devour whatever crosses their path and destroy everything by fire. But Gwynplaine's task is not to kill this dragon. It is to kiss the creature to break the spell and restore the city to life. Only one person knows why I smiled just then. I wonder if they get it. Probably not. Never mind. This suggests that compassion and understanding may achieve far more than rage or suppression in the battle against inner destructiveness. The wicked sorcerers Mabon and Evrain represent an anti-life force promoting stasis and corruption. They numb the city by driving away its people, and the minstrels with their candles, who welcome Gwynplaine so avidly, are the walking dead, the people, zombies by the way, the people who have died within because they have given way to an inner despair and darkness. Mabon too is inwardly dead. There is no love, compassion, or joy in his heart, which is why he putrefies immediately. These images of evil which Gwynplaine conquers are not only out there in the world, but also within the fair unknown himself. They are the dark, destructive, regressive impulses with which all young people must battle if they are to win their place in the light and claim a sense of inner identity and a fulfilling and productive life. In the images of the sorcerers, we may glimpse the bitterness and hopelessness which lie behind so many tragic examples of young people who become drug addicts and criminals. Like the Queen and her city, they are bewitched by the belief that there is no hope and that the world is a terrible, barren place. The desert with no name. No, what is it? The horse with no name riding through the desert comes to mind. It is not sufficient to blame these anti-life forces on society or government, although in the modern post-Covidian era They are completely blameworthy. They lie within each of us, and the quest for identity involves facing them honestly and surmounting them. Ginglain brings the waste city back to life by marrying its queen and becomes a king of life rather than of death. L'chaim, be in it, life, people, and all its tragedies and whimsy and treacheries. There is still great beauty and magic and love to be made and co-created out in the world. Choose life, my darlings, always and forever. Choose life. He also wins the love of the Fae. It's no accident that my business name and my home is Sacred Space, Titania's realm, Queen of the Forest Fae, since I live at the foot of the forest. And my name in Russian, Tanya, is short for Tatiana or Titania. It's a gift that keeps giving, levels and levels and levels and resonances and echoes beyond time and space. Maybe Queen Titania and King Oberon will bring me my one true love one day, if they ever find me worthy of such a good and kind and noble man, as befits a daughter of the gods like me, am I right? Keep dreaming, psychedelic dreamer. Keep on dreaming. It's a fairy story without end. Right, where were we? He also wins the love of the Fae, and it is she who tells him his name. It was once believed that the real name of a person contained the essence of that person's being, and receiving the gift of his name means that Ginglain now knows who and what he truly is. He gains the Fae's love through his courage and beauty, yet it is ultimately his devotion to duty reflected in his allegiance to King Arthur which breaks her spell over him. Instead of dwelling with the Fae, he marries a human queen and rules over a human city, not a fairy's domain. This is an important part of the tale, for it is through marrying a real woman, not a creature of fantasy, my darling ones, that Ginglain reaches his full integrity. He must turn away from fantasy loves and lives, for his path lies in the human world, not in a tempting land of ever-blooming flowers. In this way, the Fae represents an inner death of Ginglain, if Ginglain stays with her too long. The road to her domain is, after all, lined with severed heads. The Fae's magical island is the realm of the imagination, separated from life, which can lead us to our potential creativity. She is also an image of the ideals which give us the incentive to move out into life. Ideals inspire us to pursue the good, the true, and the beautiful, yet by their nature they can never be entirely achieved, and if we dwell too long in the realm of the imagination, we may ignore the outer world which requires our efforts and attention. We both need ideals and a sense of reality, for each individual must come to terms with living here and now, and must find his or her own identity within the framework of being human. This is a detail of the Beethoven frieze, Gustav Klimt, 1862 to 1918. I'm very fond of Gustav Klimt's art because a lot of his paintings are painted with gold, and the Mama T is very fond of gold. Don't have much anymore, but wow, creativity and potentiates. It's a goal to work towards. Don't need a lot of gold. I'm already very, very wealthy, gifted by the gods in spiritual gold, which you can't see, but I'm immersed in it, except when my sewer blows. It's a bit hard to turn that shit to spiritual gold, but wow, it's been fixed. So there is that. As the young knight Genglain stood alone and frightened in the darkness of the hall of the ruined palace of Sinaudon, he kept his spirits high by thinking of the beautiful maiden with the white hands and blonde Esmeralda, whom he must save. And that's why they chose that painting. The next story is Gilgamesh and the Tree of Life, accepting mortality, which can be a bit hard to accept at times, but it's also a soul journey and a struggle worth fighting for. The Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh is a lengthy 4,000-year-old tale describing the exploits of the first of the great mythic heroes. Gilgamesh, like his later counterparts, is an image of the heroic aspect of each one of us, striving to be an individual, entering the battle of life and defining a place in the world. The part of the tale which concerns us here describes how Gilgamesh decided he wanted to be immortal and set off in quest of the tree of immortality beneath the sea. Needless to say, he learned what we all must learn sooner or later, as our youthful hopes and aspirations collide with the reality of life and the earthly world. My throat really is breaking up. We're breaking up. Mayday, 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 mayday. Anyway, how long is this story? Not that long, I don't think. No. Forge ahead, and then I'll make a nice cup of tea. Young Gilgamesh and his friend Enkidu fought many hard battles against monsters and demons, and always returned victorious. But Enkidu incurred the wrath of the great goddess Ishtar, who persuaded the other gods that Enkidu must die. When Gilgamesh found out about the unexpected and unfair death of this bravest and most beloved of comrades, the hero mourned deeply. He mourned not only because he missed his friend, but also because Enkidu's death reminded him that he too was mortal and would one day die. Being a hero, Gilgamesh could not sit about pondering the ultimate fate of all humanity. He decided to go in search of immortality. He knew that his ancestor, Utnapishtim, the survivor of the great flood sent by the gods to punish humankind, was the only earthly creature ever to have achieved immortality. He was determined to find this man and learn from him the secrets of life and death. Why are you eating newspaper, you stupid bird, when you've got the most beautiful spinach and carrots and apple and snow peas, and what else have I got in there? Pawpaw, and he won't eat any of it and eats paper. What am I going to do with him? He's quite mad, that bird. He's quite mad. Yes, you're a little birdie num-num lunatic. Anyway, Mama T worries about him. He's not eating properly. What can we do? What can we do about that? At the outset of his journey, he came to the foot of a great range of mountains guarded by a scorpion man and his wife. The scorpion man told Gilgamesh that no mortal had ever crossed the mountains and braved their dangers. But Gilgamesh told him the purpose of his quest, and the scorpion man, full of admiration, let the hero pass. Gilgamesh travelled for 12 leagues in darkness and eventually arrived at the abode of the sun god. The sun god warned the hero that his quest was in vain, but Gilgamesh would not be dissuaded and went on his way. At last he arrived at the shores of the sea, of the waters of death. There he met a guardian, a woman with a jug of ale, who, like the scorpion man and the sun god, endeavoured to dissuade him from his quest. The ale woman reminded him that life was to be enjoyed. Gilgamesh, where do you wander? You shall not find what you seek. When the gods created human beings, death is what they allotted to mortals, retaining the secret of life in their own hands. Let your belly be full, Gilgamesh, and make a feast of rejoicing each day. Day and night, dance and play. Bathe yourself and pay heed to the child who holds your hand, and let your wife delight in you. For this is the task of humankind. But Gilgamesh could not forget Enkidu or his own eventual end. He pushed on to the end of his perilous journey. By the shore he met the ancient boatman who had been the steersman of Utnapishtim's boat when the great flood destroyed most of the world. And he commanded this old man to ferry him across the waters of death. But the boatman told him to make a boat himself and never to touch a drop of the waters of death as he rowed across the sea. Gilgamesh did as he was instructed and finally arrived on an island where dwelt the survivor of the great flood. Before we continue, I'll show you the painting, The Sea by Gustave Courbet, 1819 to 1877. Gilgamesh, after long, hard travelling, at last reached the shores of the waters of death, which he knew he must cross to find the tree at the bottom of the sea, which had the power to make the old young again. Getting a bit cool, my boys. I have to bring you back inside soon. But Utnapishtim only repeated what all the others had told the hero. The gods have declared immortality for themselves and have assigned death as the lot of humankind. Gilgamesh, abandoning hope, at last prepared to depart. But Utnapishtim took pity on him and told him of a secret tree that grew at the bottom of the sea, which had the power to make the old young again. Gilgamesh rowed out to the middle of the sea, dived into the waters of death, and found the tree, bringing a branch back to his boat. He crossed safely to land again and began to make his way home with his treasure concealed in a sack. On his way home, he stopped by a pool to bathe and change his clothes. But a serpent, creeping near, smelled the heavenly scent of the tree of immortality and carried the branch off and ate the leaves. This is why the serpent is able to renew itself by shedding its skin. I wonder if Sybil will come back this spring again and shed her skin in the safety of my back garden. She was lovely. Freaked me out for a while, but we became almost symbiotically, energetically attached. Wow, I am a wood snake in Chinese astrology. Gilgamesh, the hero, knelt down by the pool, put his face in his hands and wept. He understood now that what he had been told was true. Even the mightiest and most courageous of heroes is human and must learn to live with joy in the moment and acceptance of the inevitable end. Commentary. This tale really needs no interpretation. Its message is clear and its relevance no less today than it was 4,000 years ago. Gilgamesh, the young hero who has already made many conquests, comes face to face with a characteristic manifestation of life's unfairness. He loses his friend, and the only explanation is that it was the will of the gods. In such a way do we all, sooner or later, encounter the first glimpse of life's cruel face through the loss of a loved one. Often, this is a parent or a much-loved grandparent, but it may also be a school friend or a work colleague who is struck down, or it may not be death that reminds us of the lot of humankind. It may be They're shredding all their paper. Funny boys. It may be a realization of the hardship in which so many people live, a confrontation with illness oneself, or difficult circumstances which disrupt one's life and throw one's plans and dreams awry. Gilgamesh, like the youthful part of all of us, refuses at first to accept his fate. After all, he is special. He is a hero. He has conquered monsters and is making his mark on the world. When we hear of others' misfortune, we all say to ourselves, "How sad, but it won't happen to me." The pursuit of one's destiny in youth is full of confidence and profound sense of specialness. This is one of the gifts of the first half of life, and if we are fortunate, we may retain it, perhaps in subtler, more tempered forms in later life as well. Blessed be those who retain their childlike sweetness and innocence while gaining wisdom through life's vicissitudes. Amen. Vasila. But this firm belief in one's ability to conquer anything will one day collide with reality. Bida bum, bida bing, bida bing bam boom, babies. Bit of a shot when you land on your tuchus. Slam dunked by fate. Still saying, "What happened?" The fastest gun in the West. What is it? 142nd fastest gun in the West. Or the Streak. Oh yes, we call him the Streak. Excuse me, ma'am, did you see what happened? Don't look. Anyway. But this firm belief in one's ability to conquer anything will one day collide with reality. Gilgamesh is warned by both guardians as well as by his ancestor Utnapishtim that immortality is reserved for the gods alone, and they don't share that. He ignores their good advice and at great risk steals a branch from the tree of immortality. The story of Gilgamesh is older than that of Genesis, and the Babylonian hero is not punished by the gods as are Adam and Eve. It is nature itself in the form of the serpent which gently brings the message home. You can shuck off the old skins of the old life, the life you knew, in my case as child of monsters and a wife and mother, former lover. You can keep shedding that skin and immerse yourself in your new skin, but eventually that too will be permanently shucked off, and in a new incarnation, or if I'm fortunate, nirvana, forever, ever, ever eternal oblivion in the eternal sunshine. Wow, that could get boring after a while. That's why we keep giving new lives, new quests, new heroes' journeys. There is a deep paradox embedded in this ancient tale. We, like Gilgamesh, need to challenge life when we are young and test our strength against life's limits. And like Gilgamesh, we may often win and achieve many of our goals. To display cowardice in youth is to ignore the purpose of life, and to try to avoid conflict through clinging to childhood is to avoid one's ultimate destiny as a human being. But while it is right that the young person challenges life's unfairness and tests what appears to be fate, we may be reminded in the end that there are some boundaries we cannot cross. Whatever our religious or spiritual persuasion, and whether we call those boundaries the will of God, human limits, or simply the way life is, we cannot claim to be more than human. Mamati is a warrior goddess in ideology and dreamscape and fantasy only. No matter what, wherever she is, she remains very much human. We must take our share of grief as well as joy, and failure as well as success. The tree which renews life and transforms old age into youth may beckon in every health farm or cosmetic surgery clinic. I find those abhorrent, by the way, but that's just me. You do you, whatever brings you joy, and chasing eternal youth through plastic surgery is not my idea of fun. I've also seen what happens when it goes horribly, horribly wrong, people of Earth. And many of us tend, by the time we reach 30, to start seeking ways to prolong youth, which, by the way, is a fool's game. Perhaps, if you wish to know more about that subject, read Naomi Wolf, The Beauty Myth. It will bring you younger ones great comfort and wisdom and solace, especially in these dark, superficial, callow, kind of ugly times, presenting ideals of beauty that are not realistic, not good for your health. Perhaps this is fitting and necessary, but Gilgamesh's discovery is one of the great watersheds of arrival at maturity. The individual who can recognize his or her potentials and can take up worldly challenges is indeed heroic, and each of us has this capability within the limits of our individual gifts and personalities. The young man or woman who can do this while also remembering that limits must be respected and that life is to be lived here and now, however unfair it may sometimes seem, has truly become adult. Right, we'll finish there. We have chapter 3 of part 2 yet to read, which I shall read very likely tomorrow. Hasta mañana. I'm still trying to figure out why my spirit guide last night spoke to me in Spanish. Whoever they are, they must be you know, a Spanish speaker. I find that very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And they were accurate and on point indeed. There was much encouragement and courage and extra strength afforded not just to me but to others in the club last night. So I shall take that with me into my week and see what else the gods have in store for me. Goddess bless. Bye for now, planet Earth. Have a beautiful day wherever you are. And remember as always to never ever let the bastards grind us down.